What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/MaliciousCompliance. This story's called, Couldn't Join a Club That Would Have Ya. Some years ago, I was finally out of debt and ready to start investing for my future. But I didn't have a clue how. That's when I heard about a national organization that promoted investment clubs, offering support and tools to help people like me learn about investing by doing it. I liked the idea. Get smarter, play low stakes, and maybe have a beer or two while you do it. So I told a few friends, they talked to their friends, and pretty soon we had a budding investment club. Since we were all friends of friends, organizing went smoothly. We elected officers and adopted a simple charter based on the national group's templates. Minimum monthly dues were set at $10, an amount any one of us could afford to throw away. But any member could contribute more than the minimum if they liked to build up our investing pot. Most of us did. Individual contributions bought shares in the club's holdings, like a stock in a corporation. Higher contributions meant more shares, meant more voting power when we made club decisions. As we got rolling, a few more people heard about the club and expressed interest. So we created a little process. Attend 3 meetings as the guest of a member. Then, if you're still interested, club members decide whether to offer an invitation. We always did. Sign the charter, pay this month's dues, and you're in. Most new members paid extra for at least a while to catch up to the voting power of the founding members. So everyone stood on more or less equal footing. By year 2, we had settled into a friendly routine, holding monthly meetings that were 1 part socializing, 1 part learning, and 1 part considering what to do with our growing little pot of cash. We picked a few stocks, started by buying a few shares at a time, and portfolio performance was added to the monthly treasurer's report. We cheered each modest gain and learned from our small losses. Then came Pat. Pat was an outlier in our friend group. Most of us knew her, but few knew her well. She had a reputation of being a little too loud, a little too blunt, a little too cocky, a little too rude. But she was also known to be smart. In a club focused on learning, more smart couldn't hurt, right? Besides, our well-respected president had brought her in. And right away, Pat proved she was smart. She had reviewed our charter and our past minutes before she came to her first meeting. She asked solid questions about past decisions and our reasoning. She listened respectfully to the education and stock study presentations, probing politely, and made mostly appreciative comments after each meeting. Just a bit of smartass thrown in once in a while, but we could handle it. After her 3rd meeting, we sent her to the next room while we discussed inviting her to join. There were a few misgivings expressed. We had all heard stories about Pat's capacity for unpleasantness after all, but President said, "I warned her pretty bluntly that she needs to behave when she's here. We're all friends, but this is business. Money is serious. So I told her, keep yourself in check. Leave your attitude outside." Ultimately, everyone agreed. She had indeed behaved. We had no reason to doubt her sincere interest. So we called Pat back in, and President said, "Congratulations, Pat. Just pay your dues and sign here." With a flourish, Pat handed Treasurer a $10 bill, and everyone applauded as she signed the charter. Then she said, "Thank you all, thank you. But frankly, you really don't have any way to keep me out." The room got quieter. Then she turned to Treasurer and said, "Now, next month, if I'm interpreting your little reports correctly, all I have to do is give X amount of dollars, and I'll have equal voting rights? Is that right?" "That's about right, yes," came the answer. "And if I were to give you that, plus..." And here she pointed at the bottom line of the club's total holdings. "X thousand, X hundred, XDX dollars, I'd become the new majority shareholder, right?" "I suppose." "And then I'd be in charge of all the club decisions," declared Pat. "That's right. Unless you all can keep ponying up more cash than I can, There's nothing you can do to stop me from running this club like my own private account with nearly double my money to play with, is there? And now that I've signed your silly charter, you don't even have any way to kick me out. So see you all next month." She smirked, turned, and left. The door had just barely closed when the room exploded. "She was joking, right?"
Oh, hell no! The nerve! Could she really do that?
"That can't be real."
How big a mistake did we just make?
Wow, what a class A baseball pitcher. But as we looked over our template-based charter, we found she was right. There were requirements for tax reporting, officer fiscal responsibilities, bank and brokerage relationships, conflicts of interest, and a host of other issues we never faced and never expected to face. There was boilerplate language about how to buy out a voluntarily withdrawing member. There was a provision allowing us to involuntarily withdraw someone who didn't keep up with dues and/or attendance. But we had no cap on individual member contributions, and no provision allowing us to kick out a stakeholder so long as they continued to pay their dues and attend meetings. And we now realize that if she could make good on her threat to buy majority holding, Pat could simply outvote any attempt to amend our charter. A more elegant solution probably existed, but within 20 minutes, someone came up with the nuclear option. 2 minutes later, we agreed to launch it. We accepted assignments, then went our separate ways to prepare for next month's meeting. That evening, everyone arrived a bit more promptly and settled a lot more quietly than usual. Pat looked smug as she took a seat, seeming not to care that no one spoke to her. She was ostentatiously fanning herself with a personal check. Too bad we never saw it, so we'll never know if she was ready to put her money where her loud mouth had been. President took the floor.
Before I call the meeting to order, I have a personal announcement to make. I made a really poor recommendation to all of you last month. I feel the bad judgment I showed means I am not fit to be your president. I'm presenting my letter of resignation and my voluntary withdrawal from the club.
And solemnly gave the letter to Secretary. Pat looked like she'd been slapped, but she said nothing. Treasurer spoke up.
"Just so you all know, President spoke to me earlier about this decision. So I've already calculated withdrawal payout and have it ready according to the terms of our charter."
And President took the check. Vice President spoke next.
"President, you weren't alone in that decision. I voted with you, and I also regret my poor judgment. Here is my letter of resignation and withdrawal,"
Treasurer said,
"and here is your withdrawal payout, prepared as we discussed."
And on it went, in small clusters at first, then all in a rush. Each member declared they'd made a terrible decision, presented a letter, and collected an already prepared check. Sometime during the rush, Pat stopped being silent.
"Okay, I see. Yeah, I get it. Seriously, you've made your point. That's enough now. You don't have to keep up this act. Knock it off already, you mad lovers."
But we didn't. With all the letters collected, Secretary added them to the back of a fat binder containing copies of all the club minutes and gave the binder to Pat. "Your next club secretary will need this." Treasurer was right behind with a similar binder of financial records, a $10 bill on top.
"Here's all your club's accounting records and remaining assets."
President added the signed charter to the stack.
"So, Pat, looks like you're now a club of one. You win. Good luck. And goodbye."
We all stood and stared silently until she shoved the stack to the floor and saw herself, sputtering to the door. Within 10 minutes, we had signed our newly upgraded charter, re-elected our officers, torn up all our payout checks, and put our new club back to business as usual. Okay, just a bit more giggly and a little more pleased with ourselves than usual. Never saw Pat again. Didn't care. Edit. Oh my! Thank you, kind Redditors, for the gold, for the wholesome award, for the many attaboys in comments. I'm blushing. So this is what good Reddit karma feels like. At it again, platinum? And a Bravo award? Gracious, I'm getting kudos I've never seen before. Many thanks, I'm humbled. Edit 3, GOAT award? Take my energy award? Press F award? Come on, y'all are messing with me, right? And with one tail, I go from the 239 karma I've been looking at for months to over 7K? You are too kind. Thank you all. And thank you, Pat. Okay, first of all, that sounds like a pretty cool club. Second of all, don't you just love all the edits to thank people for awards? It's funny. I normally just skip over them, but it was 3 edits. and it's all different. It's funny. But what they decided to do is really funny. What I thought was gonna happen was just the president was gonna withdraw, and then someone else would take their money and buy his shares, and then they'd be the majority holder. But them all resigning is so much funnier, and they just start a new club right then, and it's great stuff. Alright, this story's called Dad, I Don't Belong Here! Where my siblings and I grew up, there was a large ESL community, English as Second Language. The school system was more tailored to them. Think translators and white being the minority. This wasn't an issue. I'd been born and grown up there, so I could speak the language. But my dad was insistent that we all speak English at home. Education is a big deal to my dad. He, therefore, made the decision to send us to some of the top schools in our state, Western Australia, when we reached the age of 12. I was the youngest and therefore the last to go. My sister had been at this school for 4 years already, and she loved it. It was an all-girls, religious, strict boarding school, and she freaking thrived in this environment. She was all about the tartan skirts and matching Panama hat in summer, whereas I thought it looked a bit like someone wanted to dress us like we were about to go boating in a punt in the 1950s. She was never really academically focused. She got average grades at best, but she made some very close friends. I, meanwhile, was the opposite. From the minute I got there, I rebelled against these rules and restrictions, but I loved learning. One of the stupidest and most ridiculous rules was that I was not allowed to spend time with my brother alone. My freaking brother. I had to have a chaperone with me to talk to my brother. I put up with it for a while, and then I started asking my dad if I could change schools. This place was really not for me. The girls were so rich and pretentious and were just so asinine. The teachers were amazing. They put so much effort into their classes, and well before the internet and laptops were commonplace, this school was issuing laptops to every student because they understood that is where the world was going. This is back in the 90s, everyone. Yes, I am getting that old. Thank you for that. Anyway, the school was fabulous. I just didn't fit in. But I wanted what my sister had. I wanted to go to a school with people who had the same mind frame as me. My sister is not asinine or pretentious. She's just so likable that she was adored by everyone. I did not get that personality trait. I'm sarcastic and lack a lot of social cue understanding. I'd found the school I wanted to go to. It was significantly cheaper than the one I was at, and so I went to Dad one more time to ask him. He told me that the only way I would be leaving this school is if they kicked me out. I am not the sort to cause drama, and he knows this. He thinks that because I won't act up to get kicked out, that I will suck it up and he won't have to hear any more about it. Well, game on, Dad. I mentioned this was a religious school, an all-girls religious school. A compulsory attendance at chapel a minimum of 7 times a week, but an expectation of more? Well, what do those religious people fear? This is where the Jaws theme song plays, and you all get goosebumps from anticipation of the horror. Homosexuality! I got permission to be signed out of the boarding house by my cousin for the weekend. While staying there, I shaved my head. This complied with the school rules on natural hair and allowable hair length. On my return to the boarding school, there were many questions from the other girls about my hair. I told them that my made-up girlfriend liked short hair. This news soon filtered back to the boarding house matrons, and I was called to a meeting. The lovely matron did try her best. She wasn't homophobic, but she'd had a lot of complaints from girls who had to share a room with me. And then their very entitled and rich, bat-crap crazy parents as well. So, I was quite helpful. I told her how unhappy I was there and how I didn't feel that the baby cheeses was right for me. She speaks to the headmistress, and she in turn talks to my dad with me in the room on a phone conference call.
I'm calling you about OP. She's in the room and happy for me to call you.
Why? What's happened?
Well, we've discussed this with her, and we believe it will be beneficial to her and her fancy all-girls school name if she doesn't continue with her education here next year.
Why?
We just don't quite feel that she is, fancy school name, material.
OP? What did you do?
Dad, I'm a lesbian. There is a pause, and then he laughs. And to the horror of the headmistress, he says the following.
Thought so. You're a bit butch. I'm a lesbian too. I only like women.
Yes, readers, that is a stupid joke, but it was the height of humor in those days when homosexuality was still a reason to be asked to leave school. It was only 2 more months to the end of the school year, and then we had the Christmas holidays. I came home for Christmas, and when I left, it was to the school I wanted to go to. 2 days before I left for home again, with my hair now growing out very much like a Karen do, my dad said he was proud of me for finding a way to get asked politely to leave rather than risking my education. That is a really good story. I want a short of that or something. I want to see that in video form. But yeah, that was a really great story. Good thing it all worked out in the end. I found it to be pretty wholesome. Other than the obvious homophobia, but honestly, with a story taking place at the time this took place, it's something you just kind of accept that's what was with the time. And thankfully, if this sort of thing happened today, there would be swift consequences. But at least in this case, it worked out in everyone's favor, unless there were actual gay people in that school, which there probably were, and they were kind of forced to dig themselves deeper into the closet because now they're worried about getting expelled. Wow, the implications when you think about this more. Alright, so this story's called, You Don't Want Veggies in Your Chicken Soup? Got it, kids! Kids are awesome at malicious compliance, but it is a two-way street. My kids can be picky eaters at times. My wife made some damn good chicken soup, but the kids were complaining that there were veggies in their chicken soup. They hate veggies. Veggies make them sick, and they wanted my wife to pick them out of the soup. We tried to tell them that chicken soup needs veggies to taste good, but they were being stubborn. I'm sure other parents can understand. I told the kids, if you really hate the taste of veggies, I'll make soup tomorrow and you guys can make sure I only put in stuff that you like. They liked that idea. At the time. The next day, I get the pot filled with water, all the typical soup ingredients out, and gathered the kids. I asked for their approval on every item. Chicken, yes. Salt, yes. Black pepper, no.
Gross, too spicy.
Celery, no.
I can't even stand the smell.
Onions,
no.
It went on like that, with them rejecting parsley, bay leaves, and other veggies. The total contents of the pot ended up being chicken, water, salt, noodles. And the soup was done cooking. I served it up and they excitedly started to eat. A few funny faces later, and one of them said,
It tastes weird. This isn't very good.
I said, but I only put in everything you guys approved of. I think, from now on, I should make the soup, right? They looked at each other and said,
Can we have mon soup instead?
Since that day, they haven't complained about finding veggies mixed in the food. Sure, they almost always eat around a carrot or a pea, but they understand that it adds flavor. I remember when I was a kid, I ate everything. I loved vegetables, I loved fruits,
I loved everything. I was a fat freaking kid. One of my favorite things was Crispitos. And if you know what they are, you know that they are the absolute bomb.com. So when my dad owned the gas station, he'd sell Crispitos and pizza and all that stuff. And whenever there was lunch that I couldn't eat because there was pork in it or something, like just before lunch, he'd stop by, because the store was right next door, he'd stop by and leave some Crispitos or some pizza for me at the lunch counter lady, and she'd always give it to me. It was so great. I loved Crispitos. Oh, God.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.